Good morning.
Good morning.
As we begin, we would like to acknowledge that this service is being held by a community that gathers on the stolen traditional lands of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, Pawtucket, and Wampanoag people. We pay respect to elders who lost their lives in the colonization of this land and recognize that these indigenous tribes are still facing today violations of sovereignty, territory, and water. We also give thanks for the earth we walk upon, the waters, the life-giving plants, and all the earth's creatures, as well as the winds, sun, moon, and stars. We recognize that this is just a first step in moving towards right relationship with Native peoples and healing of the earth. So good morning again, and welcome. Welcome to the First Parish Church of Stowe and Acton, FPC, to our members and friends. I'm the Reverend Dr. Cindy Landrum, and I serve as minister of this congregation. If this is your first time with us, we welcome you. Our minister and staff are listed in the front of the order of service, and please feel free to ask me or any of them for more information about the church and its programs after the service or by email or through the chat if you're online. We also invite you to sign our visitor form, check out our webpage for news and information and where to sign up for more news and information, our newsletter and email alerts. Our children and youth are joining us for the first part of the service today, and then we'll be leaving for religious education classes. And we ask that people remain masked in our sanctuary and RE classes, except in the balcony, which we have a growing population up there, and also stay masked in church offices and RE spaces. But other than that, the rest of our building, including our coffee hour, is mask optional. Please check with people around you about their comfort levels, about proximity, and turn on air filters in any room when you arrive. After the service, it's our custom to have coffee hour, coffee and conversation in our fellowship hall. We have a couple special things going on down there today. Lindsay LaPointe will be telling us all about her documentary, Why Are You You? About the Why Are You You? Young Religious Unitarian Universalist Movement. And our climate change task force will be offering tours of our windows and telling you about the plans for how we get to net zero with our windows today. So look for those things starting in the coffee hour. Also special today, we have for you a fire drill. Yay! Fire safety is good. So we are going to ask that, contrary to the plans in your the movement plans in your orders of service, which I do invite you to look at and read, we're going to ask that everybody in the lower part of the sanctuary here go out this door. This is because we want to see if we can do that timely and quickly, because there may be people who only can use this door among us because the front steps are not accessible. And we don't want those people to get trapped with the flow of traffic all heading out that way, okay? People in the balcony, we assume you can handle stairs, so you can go out the front doors, okay? So that'll work well if we move quickly and efficiently out this way when that alarm sounds. And so now, with no further ado, let us come together in the spirit of worship. These opening words are by Jason Cook. We are seekers on a quest to discover truth and meaning. Sometimes we think we've found it, wrapped up, glimmering with newness, straight off the intellectual assembly line. And all the answers right here for us and others, if only they'd listen. But truth has a way of coming in disguise, sometimes wearing rags and sometimes finery, and so often cloaked and out of our immediate sight. And sometimes that which we have rejected, that which we have let go of or decided was only for others, but not us, can be our teacher. Let our time of worship be an acknowledgement of the never-ending journey towards truth and meaning, and our appreciation of those we learn from along the way. Now I'm going to ask Lisa Fagerstrom to light our chalice as I share these words from Jean Wallstrom. In this small flame dwell the beacon light of lanterns guiding travelers home, the warmth of hearth fires tended through the generations, the transforming energy of furnaces, and the power and life of our sun. May these blessings, warmth and light and life-giving energy, be kindled in each of us. Our opening hymn is number 158, Praise the Source of Faith and Learning. It's in your gray hymnals. Please rise in body or in spirit. please join in our covenant and affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So today marks the beginning of our Coming of Age program for this year. Coming of Age is a program that we usually run every other year in this church, but it's been actually 3 years due to pandemic since we've done this. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about it, especially for those who are new to our church. Coming of Age is a rite of passage in Unitarian Universalist congregations. It's a ritual that's actually been around for decades, at least since I was a young Unitarian Universalist youth in the 1980s, when in my church we called it ROPE, which stood for Rite of Passage Experience. It's a time when we mark the transition from being a child in our faith to being welcomed as an adult in our faith. In our church, teens are welcome to join the church as full members after they've completed the 8th grade. And so in 9th and 10th grade, and sometimes a bit later when there's been a pandemic, we offer this class, which is a chance to fully explore what these teens individually believe and to understand this faith, Unitarian Universalism, and what it can mean to them as they emerge into adulthood. So we invite our teens into an intense year of study, and we ask from them a real commitment in this process. This isn't just like another year of religious education. This is the journey that they'll go on together and emerge on the other side. And we'll see them in worship again at the end of our year as they tell us their journeys, their credos, their personal beliefs, and how and what their faith means to them now. This year includes empowering our youth to be leaders, asking them to engage in new experiences and to engage with new thoughts. These teens will engage in questions of identity and self, human nature, ethics and social justice, the ultimate reality of the universe, and the nature of life, nothing less than the meaning of existence itself. That's a lot. Would you as adults be ready to embark upon that journey? This is Coming of Age in Unitarian Universalism. And to bring us back into the spirit of worship, the choir members will now lead us in 1009 meditation on breathing. Stand in body or in spirit, please.
So what we're going to do is we're going to sing it first through so you hear the rhythm. And then we're going to keep going in. There are a few parts. We're going to break into parts. You're welcome to sing any part. Hold on. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
Thank you, choir. I often recommend that song to anyone experiencing anxiety, agitation, needing to calm their body and their spirit down. I've used it with adults up to all ages, and I've used it with children as young as 3 to help them calm down their bodies and their thinking when they're getting agitated. And it works really wonderfully as a meditation tool, as well as a piece of music. I'm going to skip over our reading today and invite up to share with you about our plate sharing organization for this month, Out Metro West, the executive director, our own Whitney Ritalik.
Hello. Thank you. It feels very good and right to be here today. Thank you so much. So I am Whitney Ritalik. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the executive director of Out Metro West, the former youth coordinator here at FPC. I am so happy to see Marissa, who is one of the youth that I had the honor of working with as the acting DRE. So exciting. And it is also so appropriate that I was here during the fire drill, because I was sharing with Katie and Mary out there that on my first day, with my first meeting as a youth coordinator, we set our chili on fire in the vestry kitchen, and the fire trucks, it was fun. So that was very familiar, that whole thing. So Out Metro West, our mission is to build communities where LGBTQ+ youth thrive in the Metro West Boston area. We do this by offering free programs for LGBTQ+ youth. We have programs for kids elementary age and up through high school, and we just launched a young adult program for LGBTQ+ young adults, because the pandemic really just eliminated a lot of the social spaces for LGBTQ+ young adults. All of our programs are led by, facilitated by LGBTQ+ adults and peers, youth peer leaders. And we have LGBTQ+ therapists at almost all of our programs. Access to mental health for LGBTQ+ youth has been at a crisis level during the pandemic, and so we are happy to be able to offer that to our youth, again, for free. We also offer education programs for schools, community groups, faith communities who are looking to be more inclusive and welcoming to LGBTQ+ folks. And I am also so excited to be here on the first day of Coming of Age. It was my favorite. I love the Coming of Age program so much. And I think it's really relevant because both what we do at Out Metro West and Coming of Age are creating spaces where youth can be their authentic selves and where they connect with other youth and supportive adults. They are not told who they are or what they believe, but they are trusted and nurtured and cared for when they tell us those things. So I love that I'm here on that day. That is what we do at Out Metro West. And I know that is what you all are doing here through your youth programs too. Thank you so much to the FPC community for your support this month. We are so grateful, and for your support in the past. I will be at coffee hour and would love to talk with any of you. Thank you.
So for the good work of Out Metro West and to support the work of this community, we will now gratefully receive the gifts of the congregation. Good morning again. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of public education and Unitarian Universalist involvement in it, the history of our own religious education movements, and a bit about where we might be going or might not be going in the future. So to begin, Unitarian and Universalists were in the forefront of the public education movements in America, and reformers and innovators in the idea of what Sunday school could mean as well. To begin with public education, one of the most influential figures in public education's early history was Horace Mann. Mann is sometimes called the father of the common school movement. And Horace Mann was a Unitarian and friends with many prominent Unitarians, including Theodore Parker and William Ellery Channing. He also married two prominent Unitarian women, not at the same time, of course. The second one was Mary Peabody, one of the Peabody sisters, about whom I'll speak in a minute. And I can't help but think that being connected with that crowd of reforming Unitarians in Boston, the Transcendentalist circles, was part of what led him to become so influential in education and shaped the way that he saw the need for education in Massachusetts. He visited 1,000 schools, learning what the problems were and developing a theory about how to better them. The book School, The Story of American Public Education, writes this: from Cape Cod to the Berkshires, Mann held a series of public meetings to propose a new system of what he called common schools. They would serve all boys and girls and teach a common body of knowledge that would give each student an equal chance in life. It is a free school system. It knows no distinction of rich and poor. It throws open its doors and spreads the table of its bounty for all the children of the state. Education, then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is the great equalizer of the conditions of men, the balance wheel of the social machinery. Now back to Horace Mann's wife, Mary Peabody. She was one of three Peabody sisters, Elizabeth, Mary, and Sophia, who were founders of the kindergarten system in America. They were raised Unitarian in King's Chapel in Boston, where they learned their faith from some of the most influential preachers in Unitarian history, James Freeman and William Ellery Channing, and later James Freeman Clarke. They were transcendentalists, socializing with Ralph Waldo Emerson and his wife Lydia. One of them married Nathaniel Hawthorne. And in 1822, they started a school, mostly Elizabeth Peabody's project. She then later taught at Bronson Alcott's school as well. Bronson Alcott, father of Louisa May Alcott, author of Little Women, was also an educator with some radical new ideas. But sometime after she left the Alcott school, Elizabeth Palmer Peabody gets interested in the kindergarten movement in Germany. Mary Peabody is already married to Horace Mann at this point, and their lives are steeped in education reform. Mary and Elizabeth together published a book called Moral Culture of Infancy and Kindergarten Guide in 1863, which would have been our reading today. It would, of course, be a century before Robert Fulgham, a Unitarian Universalist minister, would write his famous essay, All I Really Need to Know, I Learned in Kindergarten. One of the things that's so remarkable to me in the history of the education movement in America is not only how tied to Unitarianism it is, but how it's tied specifically to that Transcendentalism period, which was also a period of involvement in the issues of suffrage and abolition. Horace Mann made statements about his beliefs that women should have the right to vote and that slavery should be abolished, for example. The other Unitarians Mann and Peabody were attached to, like William Ellery Channing and Ralph Waldo Emerson, were also involved in these issues of abolition and suffrage. Now, there are so many other Unitarians and Universalists who could be mentioned, and I have a whole paragraph listing them, but I'm going to skip over that a bit and say we entered into this issue of education as reformers because it was something we believed in as a people of faith, I think. We believed in the fundamental equality of all people and that every child had the right to equal access to education. And there was a moral responsibility of our nation to provide such an education. We fought for that wholesale and then fought for it a piece at a time, adding women and African Americans and others who had been barred access to education. That same reformer philosophy enters into how we do religious education within our walls as well. And in Unitarian Universalism, no figure was more important in the history of religious education than Sophia Lyon-Fahs. I want to give you a brief biography of this remarkable woman, but we don't have time to do a longer one, so someday I'm going to do a whole sermon just on Sophia Lyon-Fahs. But let me give you this summary of the second half of her life from a book by Susan Harlow. Susan Harlow writes, at 61, Sophia Fahs began a new chapter of personal influence when she became editor of children's materials for the American Unitarian Association. So this is just a little bit pre-merger, which happened in 61. Well, actually, it's a few decades before merger. She and her colleague, Ernest Kubler, were given a mandate to design new education materials that would reverse the trend of shrinking numbers in the association's Sunday school. Sophia produced 15 books and teacher's guides in the New Beacon series of religious education during her 8 years as editor from 1937 to 1945. A prolific writer and energetic thinker, Sophia published 35 articles during her career and wrote or co-authored 13 books for youth and children and 4 books outlining her educational philosophy. She developed 6 study guides for teachers and parents, edited numerous other works and wrote poetry, and 4 of her poems were even set to music. End quote. One could say that Sophia Lyon-Fahs set the groundwork, set the path by which our entire faith would become one where wondering and questioning were encouraged, and where even adults would come for spiritual exploration. In today's Children in Yesterday's Heritage, Fahs said, this natural way of encouraging a child's growth and spiritual growth through accenting and dwelling on his own significant experience is, we believe, based on the findings of psychology and history, as well as on the experimental work with young children. This philosophy is based also on the conviction that vital religion must in large measure be a personal creation rather than primarily the gift of society to the child, or a body of beliefs accepted because authoritatively revealed, end quote. It's thanks to Fahs reshaping the understanding of religious education as pulling out the wonder and innate curiosity of children and understanding that they are inherently spiritual beings, wanting to explore the world of spirituality, that we had curricula like the ones I grew up with, such as the curriculum Haunting House. Do any of you maybe remember teaching Haunting House many decades ago? Well, Haunting House isn't about Halloween. It's about birth and death. To teach them about birth, the children wrap themselves up in blankets, and when they get ready, they slowly emerge from their blankets. To learn about death, children are shown a picture of a dead bird and encouraged to talk about it. Many children have had the experience of a pet who has died or of seeing a dead animal, and it's a way to help them with their feelings and emotions and processing around death in their lives. Sophia Lyon-Fahs wrote, what kinds of thoughts of death do we most care to have our children hold? Shall we create a sympathetic atmosphere and encourage children to question? Or shall we shun the subject to the greatest possible degree? Now, I said Sophia Lyon-Fahs was brought in at a turning point when religious education numbers were dropping, and she revitalized and changed the American Unitarian Association and later the Unitarian Universalist Association. We are at perhaps a turning point right now in religious education and in church life. Numbers are down, and numbers have been going down in religious education in Unitarian Universalism for a long time, but particularly have plummeted after the pandemic. 5 years ago here in New England, Kimberly Sweeney published an article called The Death of Sunday School and the Future of Faith Formation. And in it, she argues this, quote, the Sunday school model of religious education died in New England 2 decades ago. Many leaders had a sense that its death was coming, but the passing was subtle and slow. While we have been taking our time moving in and out of the stages of grief, sometimes lingering in or returning to denial, we have failed a generation of young Unitarian Universalists. We have been unable to part ways with Sunday school and have done everything we could think of to resuscitate it, to the detriment of our youth and their families. We have a responsibility, she writes, to bury Sunday school and move forward before we lose another generation. Strong words. I wasn't sure she was right when I read this in 2017. I argued with it a lot. I was a believer in the Sunday school model, and I still am. It raised me, I raised my child now to adulthood in good ways and did wonderful things. But when I came here in 2018, it looked like the model of religious education that we had been using since I was a child was alive and well here at First Parish Church. But some of the things she points to have some undeniable truth, especially affecting us now. She writes, for example, as baby boomers move into retirement and Gen X moves into leadership and lay positions, the size of the volunteer pool is cut nearly in half. Are we struggling with volunteerism here at FPC? Yes, we are. And now, a pandemic later, I think that the future that Sweeney was talking about, where the old models of religious education aren't working for us the same way, the things she's talking about are worth examining. I don't know that we'll come to the same conclusions, but we are at a crossroads right now at First Parish Church, where Marissa is our acting director of religious education. Acting is the title in order to give us time to examine our program and bridge this transition, and to ask the important questions. What is working? What is worth saving? What is worth bolstering up? And what is not working? What changes do we need? What are we longing for that we don't right now have? Do we want more intergenerational programming? Do we want kids to be in church more? Do we want a model where adults and children are learning together? All these questions and more we're going to be exploring as we explore our needs this year and next, open to possibilities and open to the potential of change. And it may be that where we emerge is very close where we started. That what is that most things are working and just needed a few tweaks. And it may be that things will look very different than they do right now. But here's what I do know. This commitment to education that was created by our early school reformers like Horace Mann and the Peabody Sisters, and by innovators like Sophia Lyon-Fahs, created a path in which we value and nurture education in our churches. And that is a path that we are still on and we are committed to. Being a faith that encourages wonder, being a faith that reaches out for justice, being a faith that learns together. May it be so. I bet you didn't believe I was going to end on time with a fire drill in the middle of the service, huh? Look at that. Our closing hymn is number 118, This Little Light of Mine. Please stand in body or in spirit. Our words of benediction come from the poet May Sarton. Help us to be the always hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who know that without darkness, nothing comes to birth, as without light, nothing flowers.